Leadership does not wait for a title. It doesn't care about what your seat looks like on the org chart, and it definitely does not need your permission. Most of the impact in any organization, it doesn't come from the top, not what you might think. It actually comes from the middle. It comes from the people in an organization that are in the trenches, the ones that are influencing sideways, influencing up, influencing down, every single day. And here's what I've learned. You don't have to be the owner of a company. You don't have to be the general manager of a company. You actually don't even have to be the person that's in charge. If you're the person in an organization that's raising the standard, you're calling people in the business to be higher, and you're choosing to be a thermostat, not a thermometer every single day, you, my friend, are leading from the middle. Let's go. Welcome to another episode of the Cultureproof Podcast. I am your host, Sam Gembel. This show is all about helping you grow in your leadership. Why is it so important? Because when you grow, every single person around you wins. For those of you who have been sharing the Cultureproof episodes, you've been tagging me, you've been spreading the word all throughout social media, I just want you to know that I see you guys. You are making our world a better place, one leader at a time, and I cannot thank you guys enough for being a part of this journey. A little bit of housekeeping. We drop a new teaching every single month. I am a little bit late for this month. We had the Harvest of Knowledge conference there at the Atlas facility, followed by the Equip conference in Hardscape, North America. We just wrapped up Launchpreneur Academy Live, but guess what? We are back, and I'm excited to dive into this episode. So now, before we get rolling, I just want to kind of set the tone for the session here today. What we're going to talk about in this episode, it's not about theory. These are real life leadership lessons that were learned from the middle. We're going to discuss the stuff that makes or breaks teams and really determines whether or not a culture actually will live beyond maybe the mission statement on your wall or your core values, whatever it is. But here's what I don't want you to miss. I know it's really easy to put an episode on and kind of have it play in the background as you're driving down the road, or, maybe put it on high speed so you can bang this thing out and get to your next one, your next episode. But I don't want you to miss this. I need your full attention on this one. So as you're listening to this episode, I don't want you playing on your phone. I don't want you zoning out. But definitely, I don't want you to hear this and think that what you're about to hear is about somebody else in the organization. Because if you're here right now and you're listening and you're growing from this podcast, it means that you're the glue in the organization, and there is an investment that's being made into you. So if you're the one that's in between kind of the owner's vision and the execution, you are leading from the middle. And what we're going to cover today, it's kind of going to determine whether or not you're going to stay stuck in the middle or if you're going to help lead from the middle. So what we're going to cover, this is literally 15 plus years of building middle leaders. And I'm narrowing all those years down into a podcast episode, which is why I want your full attention. This episode's a little different. It's different because we're going to be talking more so to middle leaders. So normally, a lot of times I know the audience of these episodes are owners of businesses, or maybe they're the senior leaders or CEOs of an organization. That's great. So if you're listening to this and that is your role, that's perfectly fine. But I really want to make sure that this episode gets shared with your middle leaders, because that's what this is really designated to help grow. The other audience where this might benefit is if you are an owner of a business and you really don't have that second in command yet in your organization, and you're really wanting to develop them. This episode could be for you as you kind of learn the tips and tricks and things that you need to really grow a middle leader. So let's dive in. I want to start by talking about what really does it mean to lead from the middle. If you're listening to this and you saw if the title of the episode caught your eyes and you're like, leading from the middle, what does that mean? Well, let's talk about that for a second. Leading from the middle in an organization is actually where most of the real impact in a business happens. What do I mean by that? It's kind of the sweet spot where the strategy or the vision of a business meets the execution. It's where the strategy meets the execution. Or as I like to say, it's where you would kind of carry the vision from the top and translate the vision into action for the team. Hope that makes sense. That's really how you could define leading from the middle. You've heard me talk about this before, but in an organization, the owner or senior leader of a business really only has two roles. And what are those two roles? One, you have to set the tone, or you have to set the tone for the culture. So whatever that is, whatever you want the culture of the business to be, that has to start at the top. And two, really identify what the vision is for the future of the business. A middle leader cannot set the vision for an owner or for a senior leader. So those two roles are what are really the only two things that an owner or CEO are directly responsible for. Everything else can be done by somebody else from the middle. It's been said that an organization is only as good as its senior leader or its owner. And yes, having a great leader is detrimental for the success of the organization. But I would like to argue that and say that the success of a business is actually only as powerful as what the second in command or the middle leadership looks like. Because you can have the best vision in the world, you can try to set the best tone for the culture in an organization, but if you don't have a middle leader that's kind of driving that forward, never going to get anywhere. So your role as a middle leader, it could be operations, it can be sales, whatever. It's really any role that has influence. So that could be an operations manager, that can be a general manager. It doesn't really matter. You are influencing. You could be a foreman, and guess what? You have influence. So all those things are super important. When I was growing the business, going through our years and years of growth, I've had many people ask me, Sam, what do you think was the best leadership lesson that you learned throughout your journey? And I could have said stuff like, we didn't know our numbers, and all super important, right? Not knowing the type of clients that we wanted to service as the business kind of went on. All important things. But really, I've kind of identified it the last few years that really it was putting people into a middle leadership role. Just because they were good at the work and thinking that they would have good impact down to the team. That was my biggest mistake, number one. Guess what biggest mistake number two was? You done thinking? Yeah, of course you are. Biggest mistake number two was keeping them there, thinking that over time of them being in the role, that they would eventually get better. Not the case. Not the case. We've all made the mistake when you're going through, hardcore growth years. Really, you will find the path of least resistance to put people in roles that can help impact the business. And honestly, for me, that was one of the hardest lessons that I learned, was putting people in these roles that were, good at the work, but they can, just because they were good at the work, they were going to be good at influencing the team, or influencing up and influencing down. We're going to talk about that a lot today. You're going to be like, what the heck does Sam mean by influencing up and influencing down? Well, let's talk about just that. That is leading from the middle. So if you're in the middle, that means that you have to be leading up well, taking the vision from the owner, or making the owner of the business's job easier, doing things like bringing solutions, not just bringing problems to them. You are the person who the owner knows that, you can handle things without having to handhold to make things better. You're the person that is showing up with the results, and you're communicating, and you just have like a loyalty to your owner or your senior leader. That really is what influencing up means. It's kind of building a reputation for yourself and creating opportunity for yourself to grow within the company. So what typically tends to happen is when the business is new and we're just kind of getting things started, those people that are closest to us, we tend to naturally want to promote them first, because our assumption is, hey, they've been with me since day one, I have to put them into leadership roles, right? Doesn't that just make perfect sense? No, not the case. Just because you're good at doing the work doesn't mean that you're going to be good at influencing back down. What does influencing down mean? Influencing down is all about how you make people feel under your leadership. So example would be, at the end of the day, do your team members feel more encouraged when the day ends, or are they just absolutely exhausted? Influencing down would be how you are investing into others. How are you helping them grow? How are you creating opportunity for them? That's influencing down. Here's what I've learned over my years about what makes the best kind of middle leader, what they're influencing down, strong suits or strengths, is that the team, the field team, foreman, crew leaders, whatever, if you are listening to this and you're an operations manager, or even if you are an owner, your team does not need a boss. They need a leader that listens, they need a leader that teaches, and they need a leader that cares. I'm going to pause right here for a sec, Chris, because my camera locked up and I want to get that back going again. So I'm going to just see what the heck is going on with my camera here as we are at 11 minutes. And I know the audio is still recording, but for some reason we have lost video, which is kind of annoying. You know what? We will just, no, I want to make sure we've got. All right, I'm just going to keep going here because we have good audio, but we do not have video. So the video kind of locked up. So maybe it is still video recording and it's just my screen is locked up. We're just going to keep going. I'm pretty sure the video is locked up. But anyway. Influencing down is about building that culture off of the owner's vision. And as you know, you guys have heard me talk about this a lot. I titled the podcast, the Cultureproof Podcast. The reason why is because a good positive culture, a growing culture, an accountable culture, that is what makes an organization win long term. And here's what I've learned over my many, many, many years of building middle leaders. Leading from the middle is not easy. It is not easy at all. And in fact, I mean, I think it's probably one of the hardest jobs in an organization. Let me tell you why. When you're leading from the middle, you're getting pressure from both sides. What do I mean by you're getting pressure from both sides? You're probably listening to this and you're going, oh, I know exactly what Sam means, that you're getting pressure from both sides. Leading from the middle, owners need you. Or if you're an owner, you need that middle leader, and your teams also need you. So you are kind of like the glue that is holding the mission together, which is why it's hard, because you're getting pressure from the top, you're getting pressure from the bottom. And you do not, you heard me mention this earlier in the opening, you do not need a title to be a middle leader. We live in a generation where people love titles. People love titles. There's nothing wrong with titles, but we have to be really, really careful how we use titles. I know people that will take their first team member, they're a small business, they take their first team member, and because they were with them from the day, from day one, they've seen the business at its worst, and an owner will give them like a vice president title because they were with them from day one. And clearly, as an organization grows, you're like, this person is not a vice president. What the heck was I thinking? So nothing wrong with the title, but we have to be really, really careful how we use them. A little story kind of dates back into my leadership journey here. When Atlas was kind of at the point in the journey where I really needed a middle leader. I had a second in command that kind of started the company with me, and that's a whole nother story. But we were looking for somebody to kind of take over our lawn department. Business was growing. I'm ready to just keep focusing on sales. And I had a gentleman he was a foreman. He came in very, very early in the business, and every day this guy would knock his route out. He'd get done. He'd jump into our group text and say, hey, I'm all wrapped up. Who can give me a hand? Or we'd get a new team member. And because the only system in our crazy growing business was that we had no system, this foreman would take people kind of under his wing, and he would train them up. And he never had a title. He was a crew leader, but he was really, really acting as more of an operations manager. And when we had put the position out that we were going to be hiring for somebody, when we made the decision that we were going to promote this person, when I made the announcement, our team actually thought that he already was the ops manager. Why is that? Because he was leading without the title of it. So when we made that move, it was he just dropped and played right in, and the team already thought he was in that role. And that same person today, he's overseeing a massive portfolio with sales, and he's actually one of the directors in our organization. So you do not need a title to lead, but AKA also make sure the people are leading and influencing right where they're at before you kind of put them into that role. Or if you're listening to this and you are that person that's waiting to start having an impact on the culture till your owner gives you a title, don't start leading right now. Be the thermostat. I want to talk about the people connection. There's a special connection when you are a middle leader that you have with the team that owners don't. What do I mean by that? You hear the gripes of the crew. You're seeing the day-to-day struggles of the crew, and you know who's maybe having a tough week at home. And as owners, we don't have the ability to kind of notice those things because we're so focused on running the business that you leading from the middle kind of have that influence, or you kind of know where people are at. Now, because of that, you, my friend, my amigo, you have the power to turn what some people might call a job into a true purpose in life. Now, let me talk about this for a second. What happens when you're good at leading up with excellence, but you're leading down poorly? You're good at leading up with excellence, but you're leading down poorly. Some middle leaders, they look great to the boss. They're hitting the company goals. They're meeting all the production numbers. All the things, all the KPIs of the business are being hit. But they're leaving kind of a trail of burned out, toxic employees behind them. Some of you might actually refer to these managers as the old brown noser managers. So they're leading up to impress the owner strong, but they really don't care about the people that they have to step on to get there. So what people like this do is they keep control, but they kill the ownership, or they kill any opportunity for other people in the business to grow. Guess what? I have a story about everything. I even have a story about this one. We had a manager once that he started from the field, was really, really good at doing the work. And because we were going through such crazy times, guess what I did? You done guessing? Yeah, you heard what I said earlier about my biggest leadership lesson. I promoted this person. And this person, I could bid a job I'd bid a project or whatever it was, and this person would come in under budget every time. The equipment was always clean. If I had designed a job to go one way or propose it one way, he would always just make it better. And I'm like, man, this guy really, really is, I loved him. Like, this guy's awesome. I'd get him anything that he asked. But we had a team appreciation party once, and nobody from this person's department had showed up for the party. I'm like, man, something seems weird about that. We've got every other department here, but this person's department, nobody from the department showed up. And what I kind of started to dissect kind of through that was that it was kind of becoming like a revolving door for turnover. So clearly we could tell that there was a problem with this person, but the problem was he was good at, cascading what I wanted, but I didn't realize that he did not care who he stepped on to get there. And I'll kind of tie a bow on that story. We were camping once, and an email exchange started to go about a certain employee that this guy wanted to get rid of, that people in the business actually really liked this employee. So we felt like it was kind of weird that this person wanted to get rid of them. And we're like, man, why? We're already, struggling to find good people as it was. But I think this person really viewed that other employee kind of more as like a threat, or he just had a personal problem with them. And it really wasn't long after that actually, when I got back from that trip that we were on, we had actually made the decision, which was one of the hardest decisions, that we had to promote him to another company, as I like to say. But it was really, truly an addition by subtraction moment, because when that happened, everybody in the organization stepped up. I want to give you 5 examples that you might be a manager, if you're listening to this, that you're really, really good at leading up, but you might be a little bit poor at leading down. So this is the part, if you're driving down the road, you might need to pause it and wait to where you can listen to this, where you can take some messages or replay this when you get to the office, whatever it might be. But these are 5 examples. You might be good at leading up, but you're not doing that good at leading down. Number 1, if you're experiencing high turnover, if people are quitting, it's been said many times, people don't quit jobs, they quit their bosses, they quit their manager. So if you're experiencing high turnover, this might be something worth checking into. When you're doing stand-up meetings, and I hope that as a middle leader, you are leading or facilitating kind of stand-up meetings, if the people in your circle are super quiet, that might be a sign that people are not really feeling your influence, and they're there at those meetings because they have to be, not because they want to be. If you find yourself taking credit all the time whenever there's wins in the organization, but whenever there's losses or whenever there's a struggle, you want to go and blame somebody else, that might be a pretty good sign that you are good at leading up. You only want to impress the owner, but maybe you might want to look into how you're doing at leading down. So don't miss that there if that sounds like you. If when things are going well, you take the credit, but when things are going poor, you want to blame others for the losses. Number 4, your team lacks trust. Your team lacks trust. Whenever you say you're going to do something, if they kind of are like waiting for action, that might be a good sign that there's a lack of influence there. And last but not least, you will do anything that the boss asks because, quote, they're the boss, but you struggle with doing things that the team needs done. You struggle doing things that the team needs done. Now you listening to this, you don't do any of these things, do you? Of course not. Of course not. As you know, I have a story for everything. Our first employee, by default, guess what? He became the operations manager of the company. And when Atlas was growing, this person would do anything that I needed him to do. So whenever there was a problem, you know what I would do? I would defend the heck out of this guy. People would be talking trash about him, but not me. I would defend him because this guy would do anything that I needed him to do. But he did not care who he had to step on to get there. And when I'm defending him because he's doing everything for me, I mean, literally, this guy, he drove with me to West Virginia when Atlas wanted to, get our first truck to kind of get the business started. But what this person did was he created a fear below him. And that is dangerous because those are usually the people that get promoted first because as an owner, we love them, but we don't realize the damage that, they're leaving behind them. There came a point when you're growing, we're getting all these new shiny trucks and things are going well. And a couple trucks pulled in one day and somebody had made a comment. They said, "Oh, I wonder who the heck is going to get that truck." And it was the first time in our organization where I had ever heard something negative about something where really it should have been a positive moment. And I knew then we had a problem. And one of his direct reports came to me. We had a really good conversation, and long story short, we ended up having to promote him to another company. And really, this was like our true first addition by subtraction moment. So, you know what? If you're in that and you're experiencing any of those 5 things, that's what we're here for. We're here to get better. So I'm not calling anybody out, but that's just a few things that I want you to keep an eye on. Now, what about this one? What if you are good at leading down effectively? You're doing nothing that I just talked about, but you're not leading up effectively. Ooh, there's a little bit of a difference there. How do you know if you might have good influence down, but not good influence up? You're the nice guy. You're the person that everybody on the team likes. You're the person that's super easy to talk to. You usually have a big circle of people around you just wanting to hear what you have to say in the morning or at the end of the day. You're the person that's bringing donuts to work every day. You're the fun person, whatever that looks like. But here's the issue with that. You struggle to maybe hold people accountable, or maybe you confuse being liked with being respected. So what ends up happening is you settle for poor performance, or when there's problems, with maybe an attendance or somebody, not honoring the core values, you struggle to rock the boat, or you don't want to have those hard conversations. So an example would be like, say somebody, shows up late for work, or they don't finish a project right, or they're slacking off. you might be the kind of person that just quote unquote lets it slide. But here's what I don't want you to miss. Every time you quote, let it slide, you are lowering the standard. You are lowering the standard in the business. Or what about stuff like this? You're not holding people accountable for simple stuff. Things like basic expectations, keeping the truck clean, making sure your timesheet's filled out, or maybe it's quality control, anything like that. When you struggle to hold people accountable, even for the smaller things in an organization, the issue is the message that this sends to the team is that rules, they don't really matter here. They don't really matter what you say. And once that happens, once people realize that rules don't matter in an organization, the culture in that business kind of starts to rot from the inside out. Starts to rot from the inside out. And what this does, it's hard to even talk after that. This creates a culture where people in an organization, they kind of feel like they can get away with anything. Like they can get away with anything. And that's not good. Okay, all right. Enough of the examples. How do we get better? You're here. You want to get better. So I want to share with you 5 ways to lead effectively from the middle. If you want to add immense value to your leadership from the middle, this is where you're going to start. Number one, I hope you're taking notes, the 1-3-1 principle. What do I mean by the 1-3-1 principle? When you bring a problem to the leader in the business, bring 3 options that are solutions to the problem and 1 recommendation. Bring your recommendation. What this does is this kind of builds ownership, and it's teaching that you know how to make decisions. So, of course, as an owner, I don't need a bunch of fault finders running around my business. Trust me, I know I have problems. I need people that are decision makers and that are going to take the ball and run with it. So here's an example I would give. Say the mulch crews in your business are running behind, or they're falling behind each week, and you're like, man, we're just not getting the schedule done. So instead of going to your owner and saying, hey, we're behind on the mulch schedule, what should we do? You know what? And leaders, if you're a control freak, you might be like, do this, take this, add the dump truck, we're working an extra day, get it done. But what that does is it kind of just tells the employee or tells your middle leader that, you know what, I'll make all the decisions for you. But if you're using that 1-3-1 principle, it might look something like this. Hey, boss, we're running a little bit behind on mulching. I got a couple ideas, let me know what you think. I was thinking maybe we could add another crew just for like the next couple weeks, maybe just to play catch up, or we could always pay our current crews like a little bit of overtime, maybe add another day onto the schedule to kind of close the gap until we catch up. Or maybe we could prioritize like the higher visibility accounts in the business. And what we could do is just push the lower visibility accounts to next week. So, again, hey, there's 3 options right there. But I think, option 2 would be the best. It's kind of a good balance between cost and speed. I did the math on it. It's going to cost us about $2,000 in overtime to do that, but we'll be caught up in a few weeks, and I know our customers will love it. What did you just do right there? What did you do? That you just saved the owner from having to do the heavy thinking for you. So does that make sense? I hope it does. Now, if you're an owner listening to this, remember, you have to give your middle leaders authority to take the ball and run with it. You can't, if you are always making the decisions, they're always going to come to you looking for advice. They're always going to come to you looking for advice. Okay, it's number 1. Number 2, be a coach. Be a coach to your team. What do I mean by that? When a crew member makes a mistake, whatever that looks like, instead of just pointing out what went wrong, maybe look at them and think, hey, or ask the question like, hey team, hey John, what do you think you could have done differently in this situation? What do you think you could have done differently? And when you ask your team members questions like that, it'll teach them to think, not just follow whatever you say. When you coach them, instead of just correct them all the time or just discipline them for making a mistake, you know what that does? It builds confidence. And guess what else it does? It creates more problem solvers, not just somebody that's dependent on you for all the answers all the time. The best middle leaders ask great questions. I see my middle leaders doing this all the time to the team, and it just makes me super proud when I see them asking solid questions to the team whenever something happens or they make a mistake. Don't just give the answers. If you just ask questions, that will pull the thinking out of people. So when someone comes to you with the problem, just try this. What do you think we should do in this situation? Example, what do you think we should do? Or you might say something like, hey, if you were the owner of the company, how would you handle this? And when you do this, you're teaching them to think like an owner. You're teaching them to think like a leader. And over time, eventually, when you keep asking people questions, what they're going to do is they're going to stop bringing you problems and they're going to start bringing you solutions. They're going to stop bringing problems and they're going to start bringing you solutions. So many middle leaders, I see this all the time. They find their value in their phone ringing and just giving answers all day. You see it all the time. Phone's ringing. Hey, hold on, I got to take this. And all they do is just spit back. Go here, do that, change this, whatever. It's almost like a dopamine hit when the phone rings all day and you give answers or solutions all day. That's where you're finding your value. Here's what I don't want you to miss. As you grow in your leadership, the best leaders, don't miss this, they actually find their value when their phone rings the least. They find their value when their phone rings the least. Why is that? Because the team knows what they're supposed to be doing. They're not behind. They're not constantly going, oh crap, I'm not sure what to do in this situation. Let me call and see what I need to do. And here's what I don't want you to miss. Do you know what you do when you give the answers all day? Do you think giving the answers all day creates more leaders? No. When you give the answers all day, all you're doing is creating more followers. All you're doing is creating more followers. Okay. Number 3, train your replacement. What the heck did Sam just say? Did he say I need to train my replacement? I worked hard to get into this middle leadership role. I can't just train my replacement. If I do that, my boss will fire me. First and foremost, if you're leading with insecurity or leading with fear that because you've trained somebody else to be able to lead at a high level in an organization, either A, you're super insecure and you need to look at some personal development to snap that out of you, or B, you've probably got an owner, or if you are an owner listening to this, you've created that fear in your middle leadership. Here's what I know. When you train your replacement, whether your role is a crew leader, foreman, lead technician, whatever, ops manager, whenever you can train somebody that can do every single thing that you can do, the only direction that you can go is up. The only direction you can go is up. Every great middle leader should have someone that they are developing today that can step in tomorrow if you're not there. I mean, God forbid, but what happens if something happens to you? I've had people come to me before and, that was leading at a foreman role or whatever it was. And they're like, hey, how do I become a field manager? Well, the first step to becoming a field manager is you've got to train your foreman replacement, because we can't promote you if somebody else can't take over your job. That's not the way leadership and influence works. When you train that right-hand person, you're not making yourself less valuable. You're actually making yourself more promotable. When you train somebody to be able to do what you do, you're not decreasing your value. You're actually increasing your value, and you're making yourself much, much more promotable. The best way to grow in your influence is to build people who can operate day to day without you. A couple little simple examples. Maybe you're letting a crew leader lead your morning huddle. Or if you finish a project, maybe you're letting the foreman kind of do the final walkthrough of the job site with the client. You don't have to be there to do it. One day, that same person, they'll be able to run the crew when you're not there. If you're the only person who can do your job, this is powerful. So maybe this needs to be on a sticky note on your truck dash or on your computer screen. If you are the only one who can do your job, I don't care if you're an owner or if you're a middle leader in this, if you're the only person who can do your job, you are a liability, not a leader. You are a liability, not a leader, because if something happens to you, the business or your team are in jeopardy. Don't miss that. Number four, be a new hire ambassador. Remember what I said earlier about having that connection with the team member that an owner doesn't have? When you're a new hire ambassador, when the new team member joins the business, the goal is to be connected to the business, not just go through an orientation. And if the owner of the business is the one that's doing all the welcoming, the new hire can kind of feel like, okay, I'm joining a company. I'm joining a company here. But when you, as the middle leader or an operations manager, or maybe even one of your foremen, take ownership, that first impression of that person joining the business, then now when that new hire comes in, they feel like they're joining a family, not a company. And imagine when you're, walking around and you're the one that's handing them their t-shirt and their paperwork, and you're kind of making them feel welcome. What you can just think of this conversation on day one, you can be like, oh, I remembered, when I was in your position, I started just like you. And here's what helped me get through, my first few weeks when I was new to the business. And I cannot express this enough to build a great culture in a business, that 15 to 30 minute conversation from a middle leader when a new person is coming on can literally cut your turnover by 50%, just because people feel welcome. And you're walking around with them and they're like, man, is this person the owner of the business? No, I'm actually, I started just like you. I was on a weed whacker when I started here. I was washing vehicles, depending on whatever your business is, or if I'm a nonprofit, I was a greeter at the door. And now, I'm the director of this nonprofit, whatever it looks like. But be the new hire ambassador. Take that load off the owner's plate. And if you're the owner, let somebody else do that. I don't care if you have 3 team members and if you're the owner and you only have 3 team members, do not be the one that does the new hire orientation. Create one of your foremen or one of your leads to be that new hire ambassador. I'm telling you right now, it will be an absolute game changer for your business. When a new hire is welcomed by a manager or a middle leader, they're going to meet a person day in and day out that's going to walk the walk with them. But when they're only welcomed by the owner, you might only meet them for one day. So you get them into the business and they might rarely ever see you because you're busy running the day-to-day in the business. And you and I both know that a new job can be super intimidating. And people feel much more comfortable when that experience comes peer-to-peer, when it comes peer-to-peer. Okay, last one, number 5. Take time to assess those under your charge. Take time to assess those under your charge consistently. Consistently. What do I mean by consistently? Well, the feedback for those that are under your charge, that should be coming from you, not the owner. That feedback should be coming from you, not the owner. How does the owner know how the person is that you're leading and that you're developing? How does the owner know how that person's doing? A lot of times we don't. That is your job. That's your job. And here's a hard truth to that. If a crew member or a foreman or whatever it is, depending on what your role is, has to come to you asking for a raise or asking for feedback to how they're doing, don't miss this. You're already behind. The best middle leaders do not wait to assess and let people know how they're doing. They initiate that process. If the owner has to step in and do your reviews for you or talk about compensation with your people, it tells the team that you are a messenger, not a leader. Tells the team that you are a messenger, not a leader. People want to know that their leader sees them. They want to know that their leader is tracking their growth, and they want to know that their leader absolutely cares deeply about their future. Cannot miss that. Here's 3 kind of practical examples for how you can assess your people accordingly. Sit down quarterly with them. Sit down and just, tell them, ask them questions. How are they feeling about their role? What are they learning? And really, most importantly, where do they want to grow? What do they want to get out of the business? Keep a simple kind of running note. Keep a note in your truck. Keep a note in your computer. Who's improving, who's struggling, who do you see that's ready for more? Who do you see that is ready to like step up and elevate and lead at a high level? And when you see growth, call it out. When you see growth, call it out. When somebody's doing kick butt, call it out. But when you see somebody that's not honoring the values of the business, or you see somebody that's maybe backsliding a little bit, make sure you address it early. Don't wait to give people feedback. People want to know how they're doing, and you as the middle leader, that feedback needs to come from you. Tons of people ask me, Sam, how do you create a great culture in an organization? How do you create great culture? It is so much simpler than what we actually think it is. To create a great culture in a business, all you have to do, set the expectations. This is how we do things in our organization. And when people are kicking butt, taking names, praise them, bonus them, give them raises based on their performance. But when they're not, just hold them accountable to it. It's that simple. Set the expectations, hold people accountable when they're not doing good, and praise them when they're rocking it out. Don't miss this. If you don't know how your team is performing, if you're just like getting them out in the morning and then you don't realize what happens after that point, you are not leading them. You're just watching them. You're babysitting them. Don't miss this. One kind of final thing that is a great way to lead from the middle is to honor the absent. Honor the absent. I talk about that a lot with managers and leaders and business owners that I kind of coach and mentor, that you have to honor the absent. What I mean by that is talking about a crew leader or a crew member behind their back when they're not around. What message does that send to the person that you're talking to about the person that's not there? Do you really, really think that when you're talking to a crew leader about another crew leader, that you're actually building trust as a middle leader with them? I paused there by design because I wanted you to think about that for a second. Do you think that it builds trust? No, it doesn't. Not. If people see you're talking about other people, they think there's a pretty good chance that you're talking about them too. There's a pretty good chance that you're talking about them too. Yes, culture starts with the owner, but your job is to take the vision and lead it down well. If you're not leading from the middle and cascading that vision down well, all you're going to attract to the business is B and C players. If people see that you're not holding somebody accountable to the values, or you're letting them get away with something that they shouldn't, all you're going to do is attract B and C players. And if you've got a business full of B and C players, I know this podcast isn't about the A, B, and C players. There's another episode where we talked about that. But so hopefully you understand the difference between an A player, a B player, and a C player. We won't dive into that today. But A players in a business, they will not stay in a B and C player culture. They will not stay in a B and C player culture. A players, the people that want to be praised when they're kicking butt and taking names, and they're held accountable when they're not doing well, they actually crave accountability. A players actually crave accountability. They want to be pushed. They want to be coached. They want to be held to a higher standard. And when an A player sees mediocrity being tolerated, guess what? They leave. They're gone. Remember I mentioned earlier, if people are leaving the business, if you have a horrible turnover rate, that might be because people are seeing mediocrity being tolerated, and they're leaving not because they're frustrated with the work. They're leaving because they're frustrated with the leadership. They're leaving because they're frustrated with the leadership. When you don't hold people accountable, you're not being nice. Don't think that you're being nice by not holding people accountable. You're actually being negligent. A players, they want to win. And if you let everybody in the organization or everybody under your charge play by different rules, those A players, you know what they're going to do? They're going to find a different team. And don't miss this. If everybody under your charge likes you, they think you're awesome, but nothing is improving, you think they're going to stick around for that? No, they're not going to stick around for that. They're not going to stick around for that. Here's what I've learned over my many, many years of building, middle leaders and seeing some of the best middle leaders cultivate other leaders under their charge. When you help people get what they want, they will help you get what you want. When you help people get what they want, they will help you get what you want. I had a manager really not that long ago, a middle leader. This guy he was great at leading up, and at a certain point in time, he was great at leading down. But somewhere throughout that journey, he lost the locker room. He had told some of his direct reports that he was going to give them raises, and it never happened. He was following the format or the process of the business with doing consistent performance evals. But then he would say, yeah, let me, grow you here and I'll give you a raise by doing this. And it never happened. And what happened was those team members, they were starting to get frustrated with the lack of follow through. And they started going to other leaders in the business. They started coming to me for guidance and for results. And I'll tell you right now, when that happens, it is so hard to get their trust back. It's so hard to get their trust back when you lose the locker room. And as an owner, I can't just jump in and save the day. I can't jump in and be like, John's the leader here. You will respect him. It doesn't work that way. Leading is influence, and everybody has influence. You're either using it to advance the organization to be better, or the organization is going backwards because your lack of influence. But just because you have a title does not mean that you're going to get results. And I tell my middle leaders all the time, if you're not living well, if you're not leading at a high level to the people under your charge, your team can and will make your job an absolute living HE double hockey stick. If you're not leading well, a lot of times as an owner, I won't have to, promote you out of the company. Your team is going to make your job so hard that you're going to want to quit. In fact, when I had to part ways with that leader that I'm talking about that lost the locker room, I think he was actually relieved, because his team was just, they didn't trust him anymore. They didn't respect him anymore. And he worked really, really hard to get it back. But I think in that process, it was just too late. And if your people trust you and believe that you have their best interest in mind, literally, they will charge the gates of hell with a water pistol for you. They really, really will. They really, really will. Now, again, I want to talk to the owners here for a second. So if you're listening to this and you're an owner of an organization, and if you're listening to this and the reason you wanted to dive into this episode is because you're looking to develop that second in command and you just kind of don't know where to start. If you're listening to this, if you can't think of a person on your team within 10 to 20 seconds or so to be your middle leader, to be the person that you want to start cultivating to move up, they don't work for you yet. They don't work for you yet. Keep hiring, keep developing. They don't work for you yet. I was actually in a conversation not that long ago with the person that I kind of mentor a little bit, and he was looking at promoting one of his foremen into a higher leadership role in the business. And he's been with them for a long time and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, yeah, I'm going to promote this person. And I asked him the question. I said, well, who has that person developed? Why is it that you think, because they worked for you for a long time, that they should move into a managerial role? Who have they built? And then he said, well, nobody yet. Yet he hasn't built nobody yet. Well, just because a person gets a title doesn't mean that they're going to be a great leader. It's actually the exact opposite. If they're not building people before they have the title, there's a pretty good chance that they're not going to develop people after they get the title too. I've had owners and managers ask me all the time, but Sam, what if I train this guy up or cultivate him up to be a middle leader in my business, and I teach them everything that they need to know about business, and I do all that and they leave me? Oh man, sure. Yep. It could happen. You could do that. You could train them, develop them, hold them accountable, teach them every single thing you know about business, culture, leadership, vision, whatever that looks like. It could happen. But what if you don't do that and then they end up staying? I paused there again by design. Remember this. Leading from the middle is not a title, it's influence. Leading from the middle is not a title, it's influence. And if you have to announce or have the title for people to know that you are a quote unquote leader, you don't have it. You don't have it. You don't have it. If the title is the only reason why you're leading, you don't have it. The way you lead people will determine whether or not the vision of the company will live and be carried out, or if it's going to die. The way you lead people, the way you influence people will determine whether or not the vision of the company will live on and be carried out, or is it going to die? You are an intrapreneur. What do I mean by that? You might not own the business, but you own your impact. You might not own the business, but you own your impact. You are to think like an owner. As a middle leader, we need you thinking like an owner. You are to care like an owner. You are to act like an owner. It's not at all about the position. It's about the influence. Your titles make you a manager. So if you were a crew member when you came into the business and you moved to a crew leader, then now that's a managerial promotion. But your impact that you have on your team or the impact that you have on the organization, that is what makes you a leader. And that impact, that influence that you have every single day, you are either earning more or you are losing that trust by how you show up and the example that you set. That middle, that role where you're at, when you get that title or whatever that looks like, that's where that influence is tested. That's where the influence is tested. And people will follow you because they trust you, because they know that you have their best interest in mind, not because they have to. If you learn to lead well in the middle, don't miss this. If you can learn to lead well from the middle where you're influencing up and you're influencing down, no matter how that looks like, I'm telling you right now, there is no limit on where you can go in an organization. I am speaking for every single business owner in the world. If you are a great middle leader that understands the concept of leading up well and cascading that vision down to the team, there is no limit on what your potential is in the business. And again, I am speaking for every owner in the world when I say that. A company is only as good as its middle leaders. You do not have to wait for a promotion or a title to act like a leader. You can lead right where you're at right now. I want to leave today with one question. It's one question, but it's actually got a couple of questions that tie into it. But when you walk into a room or when you walk into the center of your team, what changes? What changes with your team? Do you see that your presence makes the energy in the room rise, or does it drop? Do you see energy rise when you walk in, or does it drop? Do people lean in to what you have to say, or do they check out? Are they leaning in, or are they checking out? Because leading from the middle has nothing to do with power. It's all to do with your presence. It's about your influence. It has nothing to do with authority. It has nothing to do with the fact that, I can get you hired or I can get you fired if I got into this role. No, it has nothing to do with authority. It's all about influence. And again, I know I'm beating this, but kicking the dead horse here. You do not need a title to be a leader. You just need to own the atmosphere that you create. Be the thermostat. Don't be a thermometer. Don't be a fault finder. Be the solution person, and you will be literally the best asset you can be to an organization. The culture that you want for the people that you're leading, the culture you want starts with the example you set. The culture you want starts with the example you set, whatever that looks like. You know what's really, really cool? If you want to know something about yourself that maybe you didn't know before this episode, today, listening to this episode, leaning in, you actually got a little bit better. You actually became a better leader by listening to this episode. You want to know why? Because you invested in yourself. You invested into your leadership. You invested into your future. And you know what? That right there is worth celebrating. You got better today. That is worth celebrating. But before you go, I just need you to hit that subscribe button because I want to stay connected with you. I don't want you to miss any of the incredible teachings that we've got coming your way here. I'm telling you guys right now, as middle leaders or owners listening to this, everybody right now is just trying to figure out, how do I grow that middle? How do I get better? It's such a powerful subject. It's such a powerful topic amongst any industry, not just the landscape community. A business is only as good as its middle leaders. Don't miss the opportunity that you have here to literally change the world. Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time, keep leading, keep growing, and keep on leading Culture Proof. God bless you guys. Peace out.